May 7, 2023. I was walking down the empty halls of Jefferson High, making my usual rounds as the night security guard. The building was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on you. As I approached room 304, I noticed something unusual. The door, which was always locked, seemed slightly ajar. I hesitated for a moment before trying the handle. It was locked tight, but I could hear faint noises from inside, like whispers carried on a breeze. My pulse quickened, a mix of curiosity and unease. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to make out the sounds, but they were too faint, almost as if the room itself was breathing. Determined to uncover the source, I went to the main office to check if there were any records about room 304. The dusty files revealed nothing special, just an old classroom that hadn't been used in years. Frustration mingled with my curiosity, making me more determined to solve this mystery. Later that night, I brought up the locked room with Principal Harris. He dismissed it with a wave, claiming it was just an old storage room. But his casual dismissal felt off, almost too rehearsed. The tension in his voice, the way his eyes avoided mine, fueled my suspicions. By the end of my shift, I decided to investigate further. The school would be empty over the weekend, giving me the perfect opportunity to explore without interruption. As I locked up for the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was waiting behind that door. Over the weekend, I gathered a few trusted colleagues to help with the investigation. Jake, another night guard, and Lisa, the school's IT specialist, were intrigued by my tale of the locked door and mysterious noises. We met at the school late Saturday night, armed with flashlights and a sense of determination. We planned our approach carefully. First, we would try to find a way to unlock the door without raising suspicion. Lisa suggested using her skills to bypass the electronic lock system. As she worked on her laptop, the rest of us kept an eye out for any signs of movement in the dark corridors. Emotions ran high as we approached room 304. The silence was thick, punctuated only by the occasional creak of the old building. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she connected her laptop to the lock system, the soft click of keys echoing in the hall. My heart pounded, each beat louder than the last. After what felt like an eternity, we heard a soft beep, and the lock clicked open. We exchanged nervous glances before pushing the door. It swung open slowly, revealing a room bathed in shadows. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of dust and old books. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, illuminating rows of desks and a chalkboard covered in faded writing. Suddenly, a loud bang from the back of the room made us jump. Jake and I moved forward cautiously, our flashlights revealing an old filing cabinet that had toppled over. Papers were scattered across the floor, some yellowed with age. Among them, I noticed a stack of old photographs and handwritten notes. The room seemed to hold its breath as we gathered the papers. Each photo and note hinted at a forgotten story, a piece of history buried within the school's walls. As we sifted through the documents, a clearer picture began to emerge, one that filled us with both excitement and dread. The dim light of our flashlights cast eerie shadows as we examined the old photographs and notes. Each piece seemed to connect to a former student named Emily, who had attended Jefferson High many years ago. The notes detailed her experiences and hinted at a tragedy that had taken place in room 304. The photos showed a vibrant young girl with a bright smile, surrounded by friends. But as we flipped through them, the images grew darker, capturing moments of fear and isolation. The final photo sent chills down my spine. It was a close-up of Emily, her eyes wide with terror, standing in front of the very door we had just opened. Determined to uncover the truth, we continued to explore the room. Our flashlights revealed more personal items: a worn-out backpack, a few old textbooks, and a diary hidden under one of the desks. I carefully opened the diary, the pages brittle with age. Inside, Emily's handwriting told a story of bullying, secrets, and a mysterious illness that seemed to consume her. As we read, a picture of Emily's final days at Jefferson High began to form. She had spent her last days in isolation, tormented by her peers and neglected by the school administration. The room had become her refuge, a place where she could hide from the world that had turned against her. Our emotions were a mix of sadness and anger. How could such a tragedy have been forgotten? Why had the school locked away her story, her pain? The questions swirled in our minds, fueling our determination to honor Emily's memory. But as we delved deeper, the room seemed to close in around us, the air growing colder and more oppressive. Just as we were about to leave, Lisa found a hidden compartment in the old filing cabinet. Inside, there was a small box containing a locket with Emily's initials. Holding the locket, I felt a connection to her, a silent promise to bring her story to light. As we left the room, the weight of our discovery pressed down on us, but so did a sense of purpose. Back in the main office, we pored over the documents we had found, piecing together Emily's tragic story. It was clear that she had suffered greatly, and the school's negligence had played a role in her demise. The sense of injustice fueled our determination to uncover more about her life and bring her story to the community. The next day, I met with Principal Harris again, this time armed with the evidence we had discovered. As I laid out the photos, diary, and locket, I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He admitted that the school had chosen to bury Emily's story to avoid scandal, a decision that had haunted him ever since. His voice trembled as he spoke, a mix of guilt and relief. With the principal's support, we reached out to Emily's family. Her mother, now elderly, was moved to tears when she saw the items we had recovered. She had believed her daughter's story had been lost forever. The reunion was bittersweet, filled with shared memories and lingering pain. Together, we decided to hold a memorial at the school to honor Emily's memory. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of planning. The community came together, contributing their time and resources to ensure the memorial was a fitting tribute. As we prepared, I felt a growing sense of connection to Emily, as if her spirit was guiding us. The once oppressive atmosphere of room 304 now felt peaceful, almost sacred. The night before the memorial, I returned to the room one last time. Standing in the middle of the room, I closed my eyes and whispered a promise to Emily. We would not let her story be forgotten. The air felt lighter, and I left with a sense of closure, ready to celebrate her life and bring healing to those who had suffered. On the day of the memorial, the school was filled with people whose lives had been touched by Emily's story. As her family spoke, sharing their memories and pain, I saw tears in the eyes of students and faculty alike. The event was a powerful reminder of the importance of compassion and the devastating impact of neglect. The memorial for Emily was a profound and moving event. Her story, once buried and forgotten, was now a beacon of remembrance and change for the community. As I stood among the crowd, listening to heartfelt speeches, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. In the days following the memorial, the atmosphere at Jefferson High began to shift. Students and staff were more aware of each other's struggles, and there was a newfound emphasis on compassion and support. The school established a scholarship in Emily's name, dedicated to students who faced hardships, ensuring her legacy would live on. One evening, as I was making my rounds, I found myself drawn back to room 304. The door was now permanently open, transformed into a quiet space for reflection and remembrance. Inside, a display case showcased the items we had found, along with photographs and stories from Emily's life. It had become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where her spirit could finally rest. As I looked around the room, I felt a deep sense of connection to Emily. Her story had touched me in ways I hadn't anticipated, and I was grateful for the opportunity to honor her memory. I knew that our actions had brought a measure of justice and peace, not just for Emily, but for everyone who had been affected by her story. The following week, the school held an assembly to announce the first recipient of the Emily Davis Scholarship. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as Principal Harris spoke about Emily's impact on the school. The recipient, a quiet and dedicated student named Sarah, accepted the scholarship with tears in her eyes, expressing her gratitude and vowing to make a difference. As the assembly concluded, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. We had done something meaningful, something that would continue to resonate for years to come. Emily's story had not only been brought to light, but it had also sparked a change in the hearts and minds of the Jefferson High community. Walking through the halls that night, I realized that the journey had changed me as well. I had learned the importance of listening, of seeing beyond the surface, and of fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves. Emily's legacy had become a part of me, and I was determined to carry it forward. April 4th, 2024, marked the beginning of a new shift rotation for me at Lincoln High. As the new night security guard, I was tasked with ensuring the safety and security of the building. On my first night, while making my rounds, I stumbled upon room 101, a classroom that stood out due to the heavy padlock securing its door. My curiosity piqued. I tried to peer through the narrow glass window on the door, but it was covered with thick paper. I knocked lightly, half expecting a response, but the silence was absolute. The mystery of room 101 gnawed at me, and I resolved to find out more about it. The following day, I discreetly asked some of the teachers and staff about room 101. Most of them dismissed it as a storage room, but their evasive answers and the occasional flicker of discomfort in their eyes told me there was more to the story. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to investigate further. That night, I returned to room 101. The building was eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the heating system breaking the silence. I tried the handle again, knowing it was futile, but hoping for a miracle. As expected, the door remained firmly locked. Frustration, mixed with a strange sense of anticipation, surged through me. As I stood there, I heard a faint, almost imperceptible sound coming from behind the door. It was a soft scratching noise, like something or someone trying to get out. My heart raced, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear more, but the sound stopped abruptly, leaving me with more questions than answers. The next night, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that room 101 had left me with. I decided to take another approach. I reached out to an old friend, Mark, who was a locksmith. We met at a nearby diner, and over coffee, I explained the situation. Mark agreed to help me unlock the mysterious room after my shift. As we approached room 101, the familiar silence enveloped us. Mark set to work on the padlock, his tools clicking softly in the stillness. My pulse quickened with each passing second. After what felt like an eternity, the lock clicked open, and the door creaked ajar. Stepping into the room, we were met with a musty smell, as if the room hadn't been aired out in years. The light from our flashlights revealed a classroom frozen in time. Desks and chairs were arranged neatly, and the chalkboard still bore faint traces of old lessons. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. Mark and I began to explore, moving cautiously through the room. In the corner, we found a stack of old journals and notebooks. As I flipped through them, I realized they belonged to a student named Alex, who had attended Lincoln High several decades ago. The entries detailed a tale of isolation, bullying, and despair. The journals painted a picture of Alex's life, revealing a downward spiral that ended abruptly. The last few entries were particularly disturbing, describing strange occurrences in room 101. Alex wrote about hearing whispers, seeing shadows move, and feeling an oppressive presence whenever he was alone in the room. My heart ached for him, but I couldn't help feeling a growing sense of dread. Just as we were about to leave, Mark stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath one of the floorboards. Inside, there was a small box containing a collection of personal items, a pocket watch, a photograph, and a ring. The photograph showed a young Alex with his friends, but the smiles on their faces seemed forced, almost pained. Holding these items, I felt a connection to Alex's story and a resolve to uncover the truth behind room 101. As the days passed, my mind kept returning to room 101 and Alex's journals. I couldn't ignore the growing need to find out what had happened to him. Determined to learn more, I delved into the school archives. The records were old and disorganized, but I eventually found what I was looking for: a file on Alex. The file revealed that Alex had disappeared mysteriously in April of 1985. The official report stated that he had simply run away, but the details were vague and unconvincing. It was clear that the school administration had done little to investigate his disappearance, preferring to sweep it under the rug. That night, I returned to room 101, this time alone. The air felt heavier than before, almost suffocating. I sat at one of the old desks and opened Alex's journal to the last entry. His final words spoke of a growing fear, a sense that something was watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. My skin crawled as I read, the weight of his fear pressing down on me. Suddenly, I heard the faint scratching noise again. It was coming from the far corner of the room. My heart pounded in my chest as I shone my flashlight towards the sound. The beam of light revealed a small, dark opening behind a loose panel in the wall. Summoning all my courage, I approached the opening and peered inside. The space behind the wall was cramped and filled with cobwebs. My flashlight caught the glint of something metallic, and I reached in, pulling out an old, rusted key. It was clear that this key was meant for something important, something hidden. My mind raced with possibilities, but I knew I needed to find what it unlocked. Leaving room 101, I felt a mixture of fear and determination. The key was a clue, a tangible link to Alex's past and possibly to his fate. As I walked down the darkened hallways, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The school, once a familiar and safe place, now felt like a labyrinth filled with unseen eyes. With the rusted key in hand, I returned to room 101 the following night, determined to uncover its secrets. The air was thick with tension as I examined the room for any hidden locks or compartments. My flashlight cast long, eerie shadows on the walls, amplifying my growing unease. As I searched, I noticed faint scratches on the floor near the teacher's desk, as if something heavy had been dragged across it. I moved the desk aside and discovered a small trapdoor, nearly invisible beneath the layers of dust and grime. My heart raced as I fit the key into the lock and turned it. The lock clicked open with a loud, echoing sound. The trapdoor revealed a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. I hesitated for a moment, the oppressive silence pressing in on me. Taking a deep breath, I descended the stairs, each step creaking ominously. The air grew colder as I ventured deeper, my flashlight barely piercing the thick darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a small hidden room. The walls were lined with old newspapers and photographs, creating a collage of forgotten memories. In the center of the room stood a wooden table covered in dust. On it, I found a single, unopened letter addressed to Alex. With trembling hands, I opened the letter. It was from Alex's best friend, Sarah, dated just days before his disappearance. The letter spoke of their plans to run away together, to escape the torment they faced at school. Sarah wrote about a secret meeting place, the hidden room beneath room 101. But something had gone wrong. The letter ended abruptly with a plea for help. My heart ached as I read Sarah's desperate words. The room felt even colder, the weight of the past pressing down on me. I realized that Alex and Sarah had planned to escape, but something had trapped them here. The truth was buried in these walls, waiting to be uncovered. Just then, I heard a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. It was a voice, faint and filled with sorrow. I turned, my flashlight revealing a shadowy figure at the far end of the room. My pulse quickened as I took a step closer, the figure becoming more defined. It was Alex, or what was left of him, a ghostly presence bound to the room by his tragic fate. The ghostly figure of Alex stood before me, his eyes filled with a haunting sadness. He seemed to reach out, as if pleading for help. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to process what I was seeing. Despite the fear, I felt a strong urge to help him find peace. I took a deep breath and spoke softly. "Alex, I'm here to help. Tell me what happened." The room grew colder, and the air seemed to thicken. Alex's form flickered, and then he began to communicate, not with words, but with images and emotions that flooded my mind. I saw flashes of his final days, his fear, the bullying, and the feeling of being trapped. He had come to this room with Sarah, hoping to find solace and a way out. But something had gone terribly wrong. The oppressive presence I had felt in room 101 was real, a manifestation of the negative energy that had consumed him. Determined to break the cycle, I searched the room for any clues that could help. Among the dusty papers, I found a journal belonging to Sarah. Her final entries mirrored Alex's fear, describing how they felt an evil presence watching them, waiting to strike. Her last entry was a desperate plea for someone to find them. As I read, a sense of urgency filled the room. Alex's figure grew fainter, and I knew time was running out. I needed to bring their story to light, to ensure that their suffering was not forgotten. Gathering the journals and letters, I made my way back up the stairs, the weight of the past heavy on my shoulders. The following day, I presented my findings to Principal Harris and the school board. Their initial skepticism turned to horror as they read through the journals and letters. It was clear that a great injustice had been done, and they vowed to rectify it. The hidden room was sealed off, and a memorial was planned for both Alex and Sarah. On the day of the memorial, the school community gathered to pay their respects. As the names of Alex and Sarah were read aloud, a sense of peace settled over the crowd. Their story had finally been told, their pain acknowledged. The oppressive atmosphere that had haunted Room 101 lifted, replaced by a feeling of closure. As I stood by their memorial, I felt a gentle breeze, almost like a sigh of relief. Alex and Sarah were free, their spirits no longer bound by the walls of Room 101. I left the school that night with a sense of fulfillment, knowing that I had helped bring justice to their tragic story. June 20th, 2023, started like any other day at Maplewood High. I was taking a group of new students on a tour of the school, pointing out various classrooms and facilities. As we passed by Room 101, one of the students noticed it was padlocked and asked about it. My curiosity was piqued, and I couldn't offer a satisfactory answer. That evening, after the school had emptied out, I returned to Room 101. The padlock seemed older than the others in the building, rusty and worn. I tried to peer through the small window, but it was covered with paper, blocking any view inside. The silence in the hallway was unsettling, making the locked door seem even more ominous. Determined to satisfy my curiosity, I asked some of the older teachers about Room 101. Their responses were vague, with most of them claiming it was used for storage. However, their nervous glances and quick changes of subject suggested there was more to the story. My determination to uncover the truth grew stronger. The next night, I found myself standing in front of Room 101 again. This time, I was prepared with a flashlight and a set of tools. The school was eerily quiet, the only sounds being the creaks and groans of the old building. As I worked on the lock, a sense of anticipation mixed with fear washed over me. Finally, the lock gave way with a loud click, and the door creaked open. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of dust and decay. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a classroom frozen in time. Desks and chairs were neatly arranged, and the chalkboard still bore faint traces of long-forgotten lessons. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating, as if the room itself held its breath. Stepping further into Room 101, I felt a chill run down my spine. The silence was oppressive, pressing in from all sides. My flashlight revealed cobwebs hanging from the ceiling and the faint outlines of old posters on the walls. The room seemed to whisper secrets, the air thick with the weight of the past. As I explored, I noticed a large, old cabinet in the corner of the room. Its doors were slightly ajar, revealing rows of dusty books and binders. I approached cautiously, my flashlight illuminating the contents. Inside, I found yearbooks, notebooks, and various school records, all dating back decades. Each item seemed to tell a piece of a forgotten story. Among the papers, I discovered a bundle of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. The letters were addressed to a student named Jason, and they detailed his life at Maplewood High. The more I read, the clearer it became that Jason had been involved in something mysterious, something that had taken place in room 101. The letters spoke of strange occurrences, books moving on their own, whispers in the night, and unexplained shadows. Jason's words conveyed a mix of fear and fascination. He had been drawn to room 101, much like I was now, unable to resist its pull. His final letter was the most disturbing, hinting at a secret hidden within the walls of the room. Determined to find out more, I began to search the room more thoroughly. The desks were empty, but I noticed scratches on the floor near the back wall, as if something had been moved repeatedly. My heart raced as I pushed aside a heavy desk, revealing a small, concealed door. The door was locked, but the key I had found earlier fit perfectly. With a deep breath, I turned the key and opened the door. The space beyond was dark and cramped, filled with the scent of damp earth. As my flashlight penetrated the darkness, I saw a narrow staircase descending into the unknown. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread settled over me. I knew I was on the brink of uncovering something significant, but fear gnawed at my resolve. Taking a deep breath, I descended the narrow staircase, each step creaking under my weight. The air grew colder, and the smell of damp earth intensified. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As I reached the bottom, I found myself in a small underground room. The walls were lined with old, decaying bookshelves, and the floor was covered in a thick layer of dust. In the center of the room stood a single desk, much like the ones in the classroom above. On the desk lay a journal, its cover worn and pages yellowed with age. I picked it up, feeling a strange sense of connection to whoever had written it. Flipping through the pages, I realized it was Jason's journal. His entries detailed his experiences in room 101 and his discovery of the hidden room. He wrote about the strange occurrences, the whispers, and the feeling of being watched. Jason had been convinced that the room held a dark secret, something tied to the history of the school. As I read further, I learned that Jason had uncovered an old school legend about a student who had disappeared many years ago. The legend spoke of a hidden room where the student was last seen, a room filled with books and documents that held the key to the mystery. Jason had become obsessed with finding this room, believing it would reveal the truth about the disappearance. The final entries in Jason's journal were filled with fear and desperation. He wrote about feeling trapped, as if the room was closing in on him. His last entry ended abruptly, with a plea for help and a warning to anyone who might find his journal. My heart raced as I realized that Jason had never left this room. As I stood there, clutching the journal, a sense of dread washed over me. The walls seemed to close in, and the air grew colder. I felt an overwhelming urge to leave, to escape the darkness that seemed to envelop me. But before I could move, I noticed something glinting in the corner of the room. Approaching cautiously, I found a small metal box. It was locked, but the key I had found earlier fit perfectly. Inside, I discovered a collection of old photographs, letters, and a locket. The photographs showed the missing student, smiling with friends, much like the ones of Jason. The letters revealed a story of friendship, betrayal, and a desperate search for the truth. As I sifted through the contents of the metal box, a clearer picture of the past began to form. The letters revealed that the missing student, Rebecca, had been close friends with Jason. They had both been drawn to the mysteries of Room 101, their shared curiosity turning into a dangerous obsession. The photographs captured moments of their investigation, their expressions gradually changing from excitement to fear. One letter, written by Rebecca, stood out. In it, she described how she discovered the hidden room and its secrets. She believed the room was a repository for the school's darkest histories, filled with documents and artifacts that told stories of other students who had disappeared or suffered mysterious fates. Rebecca was determined to uncover the truth, even as she sensed a malevolent presence watching her. As I read Rebecca's final letter, my heart ached. She spoke of feeling trapped in the hidden room, her fear growing as the days passed. Her last words were a plea for someone to find her, to bring light to the darkness that had claimed so many lives. It was clear that both she and Jason had become victims of the room's sinister history. The weight of their story pressed down on me. I knew I had to share what I had found to ensure their experiences weren't forgotten. Gathering the journal, photographs, and letters, I made my way back up the narrow staircase. The air seemed lighter, as if acknowledging the truth I now carried. In the days that followed, I presented my findings to the school administration. They were horrified, but grateful for the closure. A memorial was established for Rebecca and Jason, and room 101 was sealed permanently, its secrets finally laid to rest. As I walked away from the school, I felt a sense of peace. Their stories had been told, and the darkness had been dispelled.